To order for the Douglas County Budget Committee meeting. First on our agenda is Bill McPhee, tab number 3, General Fund Building Department. Is that correct?
Yep.
Perfect.
Good morning, Philip McAfee, Douglas County Building Department. I just wanted to say thank you to all you guys for being here. It's part of what we do in government, and so I'm excited to be here. This is the first one, so bear with me a little bit. Might fumble through some things. Inside our department, we have some subcategories, and you can see that there in front of you. The building department has, with all its categories, 19 employees. And one of the interesting things in the building department is we don't have any funding that is consistent, that we can say it's gonna be X amount this year and the same next year. It's all based upon who walks through the door, who purchases permits, and so it's a little bit of a getting the crystal ball out and trying to guess what's gonna happen. We're projecting a little bit lower in fees for the upcoming budget year than last year. So we'll see how that plays out. Is there any questions or?
Just if you wouldn't mind, give us a brief rundown of like the three major departments you have there.
Sure.
You understand that?
Sure. The building, I'll read how it's orchestrated on here. The building electrical operations is basically the bulk of what we do. It's, most of folks are probably familiar with building a house is a good example. And so that is the organization where you would come and get your permits, and you would have plans approved, and then throughout the building process, inspectors would come out and look at those. Different steps along the way, and then part of that department is also some of those funds from those permit fees go to you'll see a regulation specialist on here, and so anytime you have a department like that, there's times when folks don't do what they're supposed to, and so we have to have somebody that can go out and work with complaints from the neighborhood about somebody's building the house without permits or whatever, and so that those fees cover that. They also cover there's some duties from the building official that aren't directly related to building, as far as building safety after the building is in a commercial building. After the building has been built, there's no more fees that come in for that building, but we're still have to go out and assess certain scenarios to make sure that the building is safe, and if it's no longer safe, there's a process. And that's also part of the regulation specialist position. Then the next one down is the environmental health folks. Those, I think probably the easiest way for folks to understand exactly what they're doing is just making sure when you go to a restaurant that things are done to standard. And they also, one of the interesting things I found about what they do is they help the hospitality industry keep a standard, and we've had some instances where they've had to get involved because that industry can tend to try to cut the wrong costs and not keep pools up to the safe standard, or keep rooms clean the way they're supposed to. So they're definitely important folks. And then the subsurface sewage department, they're basically if you live out in the county, you're pretty familiar with his septic system, and that's the whole department. They work with the DEQ to help folks get those systems put in. Then also there's, me personally, I have a what's called alternate treatment facility, and so I have an Arinco system that there's a process to maintain that and make sure that those records are kept, and so they're working with those folks yearly. And then the grant program is kind of a little piece that's been kind of bouncing all over the road. I don't have as much knowledge about that, but it's diminishing as things that from COVID have dissipated and stuff.
It's a program that we started a few years ago as a part of the wildfires we had back in 2020. It's getting homeowners, new homeowners to build with fire safe type of materials for their roof and their you know, other things, other products that are geared towards fire safety.
They can apply for grant to do
Yep.
some of that work, and it's by statute was put into the building department. But your other two that you just mentioned before, that environmental health and subsurface sewage, would you say that that's typical of your building departments across the state to have those within the building department?
It's an interesting question because I don't have intimate knowledge of all the departments. I did as part
It's
of,
not typical.
Well, it's one that I tend to be
I know environmental health isn't typical, it's
Yeah.
normally in a public health.
I just ask you that because I wanna give kudos on the fact that you not only run a really good building department, you're also willing to take those other two departments on and run those well, and your staff as well, so
Yeah.
it's very good. I know you know, normally you do not have that. So.
Do we know, cause it is a guess on who was gonna walk through the door, how he's on track, or how we're on track for this fiscal year with a month left in the fiscal year? Are we on track to be close to that, or?
Pretty close.
Okay, alright, thank you.
So you don't have any money in the grant program anymore?
We got a little bit left. It'll be expended, or it expires this current fiscal.
And the concept of the grant program is if a person was gonna use fire hardened materials, the difference between the cost of a traditional material and this better fire resilience type of material would help cover some of the difference in the cost.
Right.
Is really what the problem is.
and so if I could add to that a little bit, historically, that grant that was offered for, say, for fire resistant siding, most people were able to apply for that piece of the grant because that's a very popular siding anyway. But some of the other things that it was like not even remotely close to covering the additional costs, and so people
Go
were
to a
like,
metal roof. you
Yeah.
know,
so they just didn't apply for it because it didn't make sense.
But it expired, it's no longer available for you to all.
It will be into the next year. Finished up this year.
Any other questions? Comments?
We have enough staff to, if we have a building boom or a mini boom?
Well, again, that's a kind of a delicate balance that we're trying to maintain, because the folks that do that stuff, you don't just go out and hire and they're ready to go in a week. So we're currently, in my tenure here, we haven't had drastic changes. It's been pretty, like, we've been able to kind of match, and so we're sitting in a decent spot. I don't project, I don't know, there's a lot of industry stuff out there that's available. It's not projected to boom, so I think we should be fine.
So the lack of new housing, is that made up by an increase in remodels? Or
Yeah.
additions, or?
You know, so the building industry is pretty interesting. When you're in an environment that we are in currently, there may not be a bunch of new houses, but then there's still, so to justify why we have the staff we have and how it works is, then there's a lot of remodel work, there's the commercial and the residential markets don't really usually follow exactly, so sometimes one will dip and the other will pick up. And we're not bored, but we're also, we're doing a pretty good job. It's kind of I feel kind of nervous saying this, but we're sitting pretty good with what we're doing right now. And there's a lot of education that goes into what we do, and so getting folks that are in the department, keeping them growing, and as people retire out, having a seamless.
Well, and to that, you normally, Phil, just so that for the next time you come here, the budget committee would like to see major changes, and one of them things you do have is you're adding an FTE over last year.
Right.
But you might wanna explain why you're doing that to that very point that you just made.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, that's what I was kind of getting around to.
Yeah, okay.
Is that's why there's an additional FTE, is that we want to make sure that because the opposite is true. If you don't have enough and then people are waiting on you, that's not a good position to be in. And so we see the demand that we're bringing that person on, and as attrition occurs, if it's warranted, then we could go down another FTE, but we're thinking with the rate of growth and everything that FTE will stay, so.
You also have some predicted possible, retirements, so that's why this is,
Right.
and may not work out that we actually have an extra FTE the entire year.
Correct.
So I just, so the committee.
Sorry.
That.
Okay.
So a couple things if I may. So much like your predecessor, you're kind of underselling how great your department is. So we have here in Douglas County some of the lowest building permit fees in the state of Oregon and really around the country. You have a goal of providing inspections within 24 hours of people calling, and you almost always achieve that. And those are really great benchmarks, but more importantly, when we have some of these bigger projects that go on, some of these bigger commercial projects, a lot of these contractors come from other areas of the state or other areas of the nation, and I've had a chance to visit with some of them, and they are just so impressed, that they're worried about coming to some small community that, maybe it's gonna be difficult, but they're impressed not only with the speed in which you're able to come do inspections. That delay costs money, if you're waiting for an inspection. But what I hear mostly is how well you and your team work with them to get to the code, a lot of times ahead of time during the plans examination, but also as they're doing periodic building inspections. And the message I hear back is they work to get it done. You're not there to stop work from getting done, you're there to get it done right, but also to get it done. And I hear that consistently, and I've heard it through many, fairly good projects here in Douglas County from, again, contractors and subcontractors from, around the state and around the nation. So you guys should be really proud of that. That's the very reputation the Board of Commissioners and Budget Committee wants Douglas County to have. We are trying to be a very business-friendly county in a very difficult state.
Right, and that goes to the point of the staff that we have. It takes a staff that understands that, and trying to maintain that staff and keep them here without, there's a lot of delicate things that go into all that, and it's been a great opportunity I'm proud of that. If I'm underselling it, I'm proud of being part of this department, because that's where we're always trying to find an answer to yes. Sometimes the answer is not the one that people want, but.
And one of our biggest tools we have, and this is something Bill taught me, is that the building department and the building inspectors are requiring the minimum building code. So if your builder is having a hard time achieving the minimum building code, you might want to have a conversation with your builder instead of me. I've told that to more than one person, and it sort of sets the framework of, wait a minute, maybe you're right, maybe we gotta bump it up a little bit, so.
I would just echo what Tim said there too, is in my business, I get out of town contractors and in-town contractors all the time, and they just can't believe how customer friendly our county is to get things done in a expedited fashion, so that's a compliment to all of your team, so.
Because you've got 3 business owners as commissioners
That's
and
right.
business owners
That's
as
right.
budget committee
That's
members.
right, yeah.
I can
So-
tell you as a landowner in other counties that how difficult it is. I spent 3 years getting a permit approved for a pavilion in another county. Believe me, I really wish the county line was moved just a little bit. I don't need very much to do this. But yeah, it's been very difficult, so your planning department does a great job. And with having to deal with 3 other counties I've had to deal with, yours is by far much smoother. Do we have any other comments?
Move to tentatively approve the budget as presented.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So
Any-
I would make one comment to you, Phil. Yep. Since Tim and I have been commissioners, we've had to, through retirements and other means, replace every department head here except for one. And every time that happens, we get a little bit nervous because the ones that we've had have been great. And so far, we've had great success, and you're the next guy, and we have confidence in you to be that guy. So we're excited that you've had this opportunity. We didn't have to look far for Bill's replacement, so we're glad you're where you're at. Just keep up that same attitude, and it's gonna be perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So move on to the next one, which will be tab number 5, Dan Loomis for the county clerk.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members, county commissioners. I'm grateful to see this continued level of continuity in the board. I'm grateful for that. For the record, I am County Clerk Dan Loomis, and I'll be presenting for your approval our budget in tab 5. The budget before you is conservative and reflects adherence to the directives given in the budget instructions to maintain status quo with the existing staff and services. I'm going to show you a small slide here. The ongoing housing slump has left us below our average recording revenues for 4 consecutive years. Our department's public services are all maintained by law, and so we've continued normal operations throughout it. The citizens of Douglas County have experienced no reductions in our mandated services. Right now, this year, we're about 2.8% ahead of last year. So this year looks good so far. Last year, there were no tax liens recorded, which that's about 900 recordings in our office, which are not, we don't collect a fee on those, but it's when the landowner makes it right, they make a recording. And so we missed out on another 900 possible recordings last year. Hopefully those tax liens are recorded this year. Our personnel costs are increasing at a normal rate by less than 4% due to no staffing changes for the past 2 years. Thank God. And also I thank you for supporting my staffing incentives that I've done in past years to maintain and keep good staff. County clerks are statutorily responsible for voter registrations, elections, recording documents, issuing marriage licenses, property value appeals, and in our case, preserving 174 years of Douglas County archives and 12 years of Umpqua County archives. In most Oregon counties, recording fees and marriage license fees help fund these essential services, including elections, for which federal, state, and city governments do not pay for their contest placement on our county ballots, meaning our taxpayers pay for those contests on our ballots. Currently, the county clerk office retains only $10 per recorded document and $25 per marriage license. I want to make something very plain to you. The last time we increased recording fees was 1987. The last time we increased marriage license fees was 1981. The last time we increased how much we collect per paper copy in my office was 1971. We still are at 25 cents since 1971. At the same time, the state has enacted additional fees that county clerks are required to collect, audit, and remit without allowing clerks to retain any portion or any percentage of those. For example, the land corner fee that the surveyor collects on. It's $10 currently. That was set back in 1985, but last year they removed that, which means in addition to that $91 per recorded document that you start with a deed, $10 of that goes to the surveyor, and now the surveyor could ask the board to increase that amount, and I would have to collect that for them and not keep any of it. 2018, the state housing fund fee was an additional $20 on top of your recording fee. It's now $60 they added on. So just for your awareness, of every dollar in fees that I collect in my office, only 11% is kept in the clerk's office. The other 89% goes outside of my office. The cost of delivering services has steadily increased due to inflation and other pressures. Meanwhile, revenues have stagnated or declined, leaving the clerk's offices without adequate resources to fully meet their responsibilities. For nearly 4 decades, the Association of County Clerks has pursued modest fee adjustments through the legislature without success. In response, my office has had to implement difficult increases. This year, July 1st, I will be increasing the deed recording subscription rate, which mostly title companies and real estate agencies utilize. We're going to increase those by 15%. Marriage amendments have increased dramatically because of the new requirements on driver's permits. People want to update those, and they've had to come in and get corrections made on their marriage licenses. And up until this point, it was free. I am instituting a $27 fee on July 1st on that. 2024, I instituted a $36 fee for property value appeals. And in 2023 and in 2025, each of those years, I reduced my staff by 1 each of those years. So I am at 6 staff members, and I'm asking to stay at that. Imagine running a business where revenues have not increased since 1987, while cost, demand, and expectations continue to rise, and yet still we manage to operate and deliver services. That is the reality facing all county clerks in Oregon. I want to conclude on a more positive note. Due to past grants that have been awarded successfully to my office, we have not only managed to operate and deliver services, but we have continued to modernize and increase security for our operations. Pending your questions, that concludes my briefing.
You have any questions?
So Dan, to raise fees takes an act of the legislature, and even if we raise fees, get that through, we only keep 11% of the fee increase?
Well, at this time, it's 11%. So each time the state wants to collect some money, they usually add it on to recording fees. And it would be really helpful if they're gonna increase it, allow us to keep a portion of that or a percentage of that, but they don't.
Can I explain that differently, having been a legislator?
Yep.
So what happens is if the legislature needs money, they say, no problem, the clerks can just collect the money and send it to us. But when the county clerks need money, the legislature's not interested in funding them because it doesn't help the state. That's their kind of view of it. And you see that in a variety of ways, but that's basically what you're saying, is they've raised, and the cost to record the purchase of a home since 1987 is exponentially more now, but all the increase goes somewhere else. So you guys have unsuccessfully, as clerks, tried to say, hey, you know, we'd like to have a little bit more to keep doing this work for you. We see the same thing in the assessor's department and other places. They do the same thing when they do incentives on giving away property tax. It's easy for the legislature to give property tax away because none of that funds state's government. So I appreciate you bringing that issue up and working with the clerks to try to address that with the legislature. But again, having been up there, they're not looking outside their own problems.
Bill 3383 went before the legislature last year asking for an increase for us, and it was not successful.
I wonder if the state's collected more on divorces over that time period. I happen to be one of the lucky ones that paid your brand new increased marriage license fee in 1981.
Just a few years behind you.
You didn't pay as much.
Do you have the ability to choose to raise your fees down there? Or do you have to have approval from the legislature?
So
What you described today, or you're able to do those?
yeah, the ones I described today, I do have the authority, and about 3 years ago, the Board of Commissioners did change a code to allow me to increase some of my fees, and that was one of them. But when it comes to marriages, like I performed 50 marriages last year. That's $117 per marriage, and that's the maximum. I can't charge more than that. If somebody asked me to perform a marriage in Reedsport on the coast, I could charge them my gas to go there and back, but that would be the only thing. In addition to 117. One other factor, remember election cycles are different each year. Odd years. This was a year where I only had one election. This coming budget, I have 2 elections, November and May of next year. And so I have a little bit larger budget during this cycle for temporary election workers than I would next year.
And your temporary election workers are funded by the state, or that's, no?
I did go to 5 of our 6 members of Congress last month to their offices and lobbied to get more election funding.
Federal level.
Federal, yes.
So I'll move to tentatively approve the clerk's budget.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Just to say that, Dan, you're fantastic at your job. Your team's doing a really great job. You've, in my mind, really turned that department around to being very high functioning, and appreciate the work that you do.
I'm grateful for the support.
To echo that and to say that the rest of the departments that are gonna present the rest of the day, I hope they have visuals like you do.
So, I thought you were gonna take credit for being the liaison.
This is all Dan.
All those in favor say aye.
Right.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the visuals.
Up next will be Rick Wiesenberg for the District Attorney's Office, tab number 7.
So good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and Budget Committee members. I want to take a moment to introduce 3 folks that are actually real important to my office and my operations. This is my Chief Deputy, Allison Eichmann. This is Lisa Thompson, who is my office manager and runs the place. And next to Lisa is Tiffany Podlesnik. Now, you all know her as County Counsel. but from my perspective, she's still an honorary member of the DA's office. So all three very important to our operations. My only visual is this is actually a real file that one would see in the DA's office for cases that were prosecuted. The significant thing about the budget this year from our perspective is that our general resource contribution has gone up 6%. And I know, and we all know, and we all strive to keep that as low as possible. That number represents increases in PERS, increases in health insurance, and for us, that's primarily it. Our materials and services budget hasn't changed in several years, and so that is where that 6% comes from. I'm really pleased to report that my office remains a full service office, meaning we don't have any types of crimes where we say, oh, you know, we don't have the resources to prosecute this type of crime, and so we're not going to do it. We continue to prosecute every type of crime. I currently have 7 deputy DAs. I believe we're budgeted for 11. We have it's been a constant struggle to recruit lawyers. Like literally every office in the state is recruiting lawyers, and but there has been tremendous help, starting with the support from the 3 commissioners, but also Dan and Michael and his staff have been incredibly supportive of making the process as efficient and easy as it can be for us to get people in. We have 2 lawyers that are pending joining us, one on June 15th and another who passed. He was licensed as a lawyer in California. I believe he's also licensed as a lawyer in Utah. He was doing some really sophisticated criminal defense work at the federal level. And now he has written the Oregon Bar and passed it, but there's still more hoops to jump through with the Oregon Bar. The Oregon Bar is an incredibly difficult organization to deal with at times. He is interesting because what brought him here is that his wife is a physician, and she is now accepted a position at Aviva, and so the family is going to be here, and he thought if he wanted to try a different change, and so if we can get him here finally, that will be welcome. I'm not quite sure what else to report.
Got a couple comments when it's my turn.
I mean, I guess if obviously Commissioner Freeman is our direct liaison, but both Commissioner Boyce and Commissioner Kress are incredibly involved and incredibly supportive in my office. So it's the best. It is literally the best working relationship that I've had with commissioners since 2008.
Tim?
I was just gonna mention a couple things. So you mentioned that I'm your liaison, but really you work with all 3 of us. Rick as an elected official, much like the sheriff and the other electeds, the clerk and stuff. They're a little bit different. They don't hire them, the public hires them. And interesting enough, the district attorney is our longest serving elected official, first appointed in 2008. He ran for office, is where I really got to know him. I kind of joke around about this, and I'm going to say it again, that the sheriff and I and him got to know each other pretty well on the campaign trail doing forums. In each of these different organizations we went to speak with, the sheriff and I wrote a new speech and prepared for the specific organization and the district attorney, being much smarter than the sheriff and I, gave the same speech everywhere, because what he does is standard across the board, and he got really good at his speeches, and the sheriff and I learned quite a bit from him on the campaign trail. The sheriff, of course, was elected that year and came in right after you, and I was a ways back because I went to Salem for a little while. But this last few years has been a pretty difficult time for the district attorney's office, and there's a variety of things I think it's important to talk about to the budget committee so they understand. So Rick talked a little bit about the difficulty in hiring staff. So we've done some through the HR department. Michael's done some, wage studies and tried to figure out where we can be competitive, and we've done some adjustments to try to help with recruitment. Money's one factor in hiring people, but truly there's just a lack of lawyers, which 10 years ago I would have been hard pressed to say that, but today I think that's still very true. The second, and because of that and the shortage of staff that he's had in his office, Rick himself has had to be back in the courtroom far more than what I'm sure he anticipated being at this point in his career. Although you're very good at it, it takes a lot of time. I know you work a lot of late nights and a lot of weekends, and there's a point where that's too much, and you crossed that point several years ago. So thank you for that dedication to getting the work done. I hope people have a little bit of grace when they see you and you're tired. It's because you're working nonstop. And then finally, the environment the district attorneys from conservative, hold criminal accountable counties like ours find themselves in Oregon is a really tough environment where state law and the legislature and the executive branch, and to some degree the judicial branch, has sort of changed the traditional holding people accountable for their actions. And they've done that in a variety of ways. One of the most challenging things is these release officers they have now. So instead of people having arraignments and going in front of a judge and the DA having a chance to, him and his team having a chance to sort of determine the risk this individual that was arrested may be to the general population of the community, generally, and usually the very next morning from their arrest, they're released by a release officer before any of that happens. And that's problematic at times. Sometimes they make a good decision and it likely would have happened in a hearing, but sometimes they don't. And that's being done by state level people, not the sheriff, not the DA's office, although they get blamed for it quite a bit. And the other challenge is, of course, as the law changed, and you're gonna be dealing with this next week. Things happen that become kind of an outcry of the public, and their first reaction is to attack the district attorney or the county, not recognizing that at times he's as upset or more upset than they are about what's going on. So, and of course, being a lawyer and being the prosecutor, oftentimes he can't comment on pending things that are going on, procedures. So he has to be quiet and take that abuse from the public. And I want to apologize to you for having to do that, but as commissioners and in the budget committee, we should be aware of the challenges of your job. And of all the elected official positions here, yours is the one I would never want. It is very difficult, and there's a ton of responsibility there. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
I would also like to thank you for the work that you do, and you hear all the time. The district attorney let him go. And I constantly am telling people, the district attorney did not let them go. That is not what's happening. People jump to the conclusion that you're the one turning people loose. And the general public does not realize what's happening in our state and that it is not you turning them loose. And I'm very much appreciative for your work in trying to put the bad guys where they belong, and very frustrated with the state's attempt at stopping them.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that you're gonna serve with these people. And, because obviously I'm not seeing this, but I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate you letting them know what the real deal is.
I'd like to also say thanks, Rick, for all you do and your staff and your office. When you talk about give me an average range, I guess, of a 5-year deputy DA with the county. You talk about the salary and benefits versus what would be an average 5-year private sector that you're up against
Yeah, so
That's it.
So I can't speak with tremendous accuracy to the private sector, although I know that it is incredibly lucrative, and really more lucrative than we can offer. And you know, I mean, and that's a reality, and that we face, and it's lucrative. It's become so lucrative to be in private practice and still doing public defense work that I've seen literally now multiple heads of the public defense agencies who presumably are getting paid the highest. They leave those jobs and they go into private practice and they're making more money. And so the public defender crisis continues to be real in this state. And that's one of those things that's gonna have to be fixed in Salem. And there's the political will to fix it. But I will say that one of the things that has changed and has made a profound difference for my office and my recruitment abilities is that well, I can tell you for an absolute fact that when I started in 1992, I came in as step one of one. I mean, that was where DDA started. Well, now we're offering them 6 figures and to start. And that's what we working with Dan, working with Michael, that's what we figured was the sweet spot to actually get people to take our jobs offer seriously and retain them. And so but yes, I mean these two back here could go out into private practice and double their salaries. I mean, double them right away. And
Just to plug their ears before you said that.
Yes. I was thinking the same thing.
But we
It's a
know as a
public
budget
service.
committee and as commissioners, without every piece of the continuum of public safety being in place, the whole system breaks down. So, police officers and deputies are not gonna arrest people if they're not gonna get prosecuted. On the same token, if there isn't a defense attorney, you can't prosecute them. And if there's not jails and prisons to hold them accountable, then you can't sentence them to those things. So there's post supervision, there's a whole continuum that has to all be in place for it to work. But, our piece of that here is the sheriff's department, the 911 dispatch center, and the DA. We are, we gotta make sure that happens.
So my other question is, do you, in your budget, the personnel costs, are there 11 people, 11 deputy DAs that are figured into this, and you have 7, but it gives you, within this budget, the ability to hire 4 more?
yes. Yes, and with eyes wide open about, where we are this year and where we may well be next year, it looks like there's been some real exciting, I know there's been tremendous efforts to interface with Washington DC, and I know that we may actually have a chance of some serious O&C money coming to us. Obviously, the division was just changed, and so if that all comes to pass, that would be fabulous. If it doesn't come to pass, then we're going to be having radically different conversations. And
We've seen that in other counties. They literally, times in other counties have a matrix set up on any given day. Somebody's arrested for a crime and they'll look to see how many cases they're currently doing and either will choose to prosecute or not prosecute a crime. And, that, you don't have to do that. But
No.
there's been other counties in Oregon that have had to do that. And that, again, that gets very difficult to keep law enforcement interested in doing their job, knowing that there's a possibility that the case they've put together may not get prosecuted.
Well, and this is a conservative county, and public safety is the number one issue for the folks that live here. And we have amazing law enforcement, and honestly, I have an amazing staff. And we just want to prosecute people and make sure that justice is served for victims. And then we get Salem, and little soapbox, but Commissioner Boyce and I are going up next week to a parole board hearing in the prison. This was a gentleman that was visiting his dad, who was in a relationship with a woman who had a little 5-year-old girl, a little 2-year-old boy. And this 16-year-old decided that he was going to sexually assault this little girl. And he did. And when she began to resist, he killed her. He choked her and smothered her and killed her. And then he was irritated that, all of a sudden his sexual assault was hurting him because her body wasn't compliant anymore. And so that case, we charged him with aggravated murder, and he was not eligible for the death penalty because he was a juvenile. But that case went to trial. It was tried before a judge. My office did everything they could. My deputy DAs did an amazing job. They convicted him, and they convinced the judge that he was dangerous enough that he should never get out of prison. So the judge said, never getting out of prison. He said that to the family. And then a few years later, the legislature deemed fit to basically undo Measure 11 as it relates to juveniles and create this new law that said that however long they're in for or whatever crime they committed, they're entitled to a second look after 15 years. And they laid out a criteria, the only criteria that the board can consider. And it's all, are they reformed? Are they reformed? Are they reformed? It's not about what did they do? It's not about how did this affect the community? How did this affect the family? That's all irrelevant. Just how's he improving in prison? And this case was not, because the bill was not retroactive. And that was, they promised that it would be, and the legislature kept its word. But then Governor Brown said, oh yeah, well, I haven't given my word for anybody and I'm gonna make it all retroactive. So now we have this guy that committed this crime who was never supposed to be out of prison. And we're going up after 15 years and going to do our level best to convince the parole board that he's not reformed and that they should keep him. But now the family will have to go through these hearings every couple of years. And so it just, it's just beyond vicious what it does to the families.
To be fair, that bill was bad even if it wasn't retroactive.
Oh yeah, the bill was.
She made it worse by making it retroactive,
Yes.
but it was bad on its surface.
Yes, it was. We had a case here in the county several years ago where a gentleman, first he murdered his mom, then he encountered one of his sisters on the stairway and he chased her down. She ran and he chased her down and shot her down in cold blood. And then he went into the parents' bedroom and there was a little 8-year-old girl in there playing. And she heard what was going on, so she ran into the bathroom and she's trying to make herself become part of the wall right by the toilet, squishing into the wall. And he executed her. And so that's one of the things that the legislature has brought on us and our governors have brought on us. And it's maddening, I get blamed for these early releases and stuff, but nobody's more angry about it than me, ironically.
So Rick just gave 2 very quick stories of why I would never do his job.
Yes.
Thank you for the work you and your team do.
Thank you,
I would tentatively approve his budget.
I'll second that.
Ask one more quick question, you or Dan.
Okay, go ahead.
And it's actually on the budget. just, I see that we're budgeting, intergovernmental revenues go down. I feel like I should know why, but I don't.
Oh,
It-
the book of mine?
Going from 77 to 25.
Oh, I asked this question, now I forgot.
You have a decrease of
I mean, it's been
52,000.
really steady for,
Right, is that the CJC grant?
It moves to the second, to the VOCA grants. and
Yeah.
then top two.
It was what now? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Victim assistance grant,
Yeah,
right?
I've moved from the top operational resources to the VOCA and other grants section, so the funding was moved from.
It just moved from the top section
okay,
to the
so
middle
we're from
section.
intergovernmental,
Yep.
okay, gotcha.
To
Yeah,
personal
from what, the
services.
406 to the 456 and the
Yeah.
next.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So overall, it's still.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you all.
much. And up next is South Douglas District Court, tab 13.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Madam Chair, Budget Committee members, commissioners. Michelle Briggs Mayfield, your Justice of the Peace 9 times in this hot seat. Can you believe that? I'm on 10 years in October. So
Favorites to see.
my budget's always boring compared to the predecessors, and I didn't bring visuals, so next year I have something to shoot for. I don't have cool printouts for you, but can you remind me what tab I am?
13.
Thank you. So very little change. It's a status quo for me. My same staff in place for 9 years. I replaced myself with the last clerk that's been replaced, so it's the same staff. 2 of them are capped out, which I'm very sad about because they've been there 10, 15 years and I don't get to offer them any merit increases, so that always makes me sad. And them, but they do have their COLAs, so there's that. As far as the budget increases, you'll see not many. I did seek some approval to add to my software budget, so you'll see it doubled from 5 to 10. I was gonna employ a third-party vendor that sent people reminders about court dates and payment dates and stuff, because I've heard other courts are employing that and seeing like in 2 months they've recuperated that cost and people taking care of things timely. But I was able to find a free version from the third-party vendor we already have. And so we're gonna try that first before I actually spend money on something and see if that's enough. So that may be something that gets pushed off to next budget. So I probably won't spend anywhere near close to that 10 on that. I did increase also the convictions and scholarships portion because I'm really interested in sending my staff to what's called a WACA. It's a conference specifically for court clerks, so they can get up to speed on some law changes and things that they wouldn't necessarily know about unless I'm telling them, and I don't always know what the clerks are experiencing. I do my best to kind of cross-train and cover them when they need to, but I think it's really important to educate my staff on the things that are happening and the laws that are changing, so they're prepared when somebody comes to the window and asks something and they actually know what's happening, current to what's happening in the administration. So I'm happy to announce that I'm taking advantage of scholarships and stuff. So I just got back from a trip in April to Chicago, where I got 4 nights, flights, food, everything paid for by the American Bar Association to go do education. So anytime, it didn't cost us a penny. So anytime I can take advantage of those things, I'm doing that. But I did want to see an opportunity for me to go to things and the staff to go to things to be better educated. So that's an increase there. So the bigger of all things is I got rid of our on-site point of sale. That's the 3%, the fee thing that was always kind of confusing because I had a bank fee line at the bottom that said, you know, we were gonna spend $11,000 because that's how much the bank cost me to have the point of sale on site. But then we recouped it by charging the person. We got rid of that. This third-party vendor collects the fees themselves. I never have to ask them. I mean, it's 4% across the board and they handle it when they pay it. So it's gotten removed from the bottom line, which is the bank card fees, as an expense, but also a reduction in costs and fees at the top line because we're not gonna be collecting any fees to offset the cost. So I'm kind of excited about that because it was a bit of a pain. Other than that, there's really no change across the board. We're still seeing 5,500 to 6,000 tickets, charges a year come through the court. We're holding 8 to 10 jury trials. I've been able to secure enough public defenders that are private pay attorneys that do public defender work on the side, to keep that rolling. I don't have the same problems they have at the state court because I have a handful of people that will take 5 or 6 cases. So if my primary one gets overburdened, I just roll it down the line to the next couple. But I intend to add a couple more just to alleviate that a little more. I mean, we're only paying them $300 a case, whether they make a deal the first day or they take it all the way to jury trial. So I'm happy and lucky to have the level of public defenders I have, given our fee is so little, but I mean, it's just something we had handled down there, but I'm not having this problem they have with they can't get somebody represented. So we're very efficient. I work well with the district attorney's office. I'm having the provisional ones. They talk about the provisional lawyers that are not quite our numbers that are working on their, I get those people. So I feel like it's a training ground for new DAs and I'm happy to educate them when I can. But it's just status quo down there. I'm just doing my best to continue to deliver access to justice in a rural area, and I'm happy to do it. Again, I'm so excited that I'm looking at 10 years in October, so. Do you field any questions?
Just a couple things, if I may.
Yes.
So, you've sort of lived through this change at the legislative level also. They've taken some tools away from you for helping to collect some of these fines, and some ability for you to hold people accountable has been taken away. So there was a time when we were approaching the ability to have your court provide enough revenue back to the county to help fund a deputy DA. And that was really a goal we set out to do, and that since they changed some of the laws, that's been more and more difficult. You still are net positive to the county, but it's it's slowly slipping away. So we're gonna have this conversation on the next budget too, but there's a point where as a budget committee and as commissioners, we're gonna have to relook at this. When we first got here 12 years ago, there was 4 of these courts, and collectively on a good year they'd break even. And in order to change that, we consolidated two areas to have 2 courts, with the whole idea of helping fund the DA's office for the work they do in the courts. So we've slowly slipped away from that. Again, nothing you did. I know you're doing a great job, but we'll have to continue to look at that as far as the services we're able to provide. So
I don't see it on here, but the documents I was looking at before I left the office, they show that I'm only gonna bring you like $12,000 or $15,000 annually.
12 is about what it shows, but
Yeah,
you've
but if you actually look
done
at actuals, I'm eclipsing that. I'm like 50 plus usually. And I just wanted to bring up 2 other things. So with the addition of jury trials, we've run out of a little bit of space. So I worked with everybody, Mr. Page and the commissioners and Commissioner Kress. And I'm gonna utilize the vacant space next door on trial dates so that I can give somewhere for jurors to go, because I was having a very hard time juggling 20 jurors and the defendant and defense counsel and the attorneys and the witnesses all in one little tiny space, and I was literally having to put people in little holes and keep people separate. And so I finally came to the realization that suite had been vacant for almost a decade, and why shouldn't I use it if it's just gonna be there? And was able to absorb into this current budget, not the one we're approving, but to add a doorway so I can use that suite and it'll be secure. So I'm pretty excited about that. I meant to mention it earlier, but I'm excited about that expansion. And I understand that it's temporary and it could be if they secure a good tenant for that space, then I'll have to move, but very excited and thankful that
There's space on the other side.
Yeah, there's space on the other side. It'll just cost more money to use that space. So this is free, essentially free. So, other questions?
One quick question for you. Are you getting everything you need from us?
Yeah.
I mean,
I very seldom will ask for something.
doing your thing, and I don't wanna hear from you when the need is.
I only ask when it's important. That's why you don't hear from me very
I
often.
wanna make sure you.
See you at least once a month, sometimes
But yeah.
more.
Yeah, that's different.
What,
That's my
traffic
Chamber of
violations?
Commerce hat.
Yeah.
So Dan, I have one question.
Yeah.
I just noticed with 4 FTEs, and we're paying $99,000 for medical and dental insurance. Is that what it costs the county overall, about $2,500 a month?
Yeah, for a family, yeah, it's close to 20 some thousand.
Okay. Man, things have gone up.
We will move to tentatively approve the South Douglas Justice Court District's budget.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further comments?
for the work you do.
Thank you for all you do.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you. And all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thanks for your
Thank you
time.
very much.
Take
for
care.
your time. Up next, we have Reedsport Justice Court.
I'll handle that one.
You will, tab 14, and it's up to Dan. We used to have somebody on video chat, didn't we?
Or speakerphone?
Speakerphone,
times, yeah.
video chat.
So, relatively, just the same budget as last year. The Reedsport Court has really struggled getting people cited into their court, and revenue has been the hardest thing for them to generate with where they're at in the world, and that is basically the only thing that I have to comment on this budget.
So can you explain to me how come they have problems getting people cited into the courts? When you're on the dunes and you get a ticket, it sends you to Canyonville.
So law enforcement has discretion to send sites where they wanna send them. The state police, at one time, I think, had an office in Reedsport, or there was people sort of out of Reedsport, now they're all out of Coos Bay, and they've struggled to have the enforcement they once had on Highway 42, which I don't think makes everybody sad. But but that's part of the problem, is that they.
So the police officers have to report to that court, so they don't want to cite there because they don't want to have to go back there? They don't want to put the ticket in that court because they don't want to appear in
So
court?
I don't know about Reedsport specifically. I know in Drain, when they had their own court there, that a lot of the police officers, both county and state, cited into Canyonville, even if the ticket was up in the Drain area, because they felt like they would get better justice provided in the Canyonville court. In other words, they'd go to the court there in Drain and the judge would dismiss the ticket.
I do think there's some of what Katie's asking.
So if you're a deputy and you live over here,
Yeah,
you're just over there working and you cite, you'd cite closer to where you live, yeah. But there's a variety of reasons why, it's their discretion where to cite into.
And they,
So-
for a period of time, they weren't, a lot of the work here at Reedsport was done on that 38 corridor.
Mhm.
And there hasn't been a lot of enforcement on it,
Yeah.
just like 42.
Yeah.
So,
And that's a factor of the state police not having as they got vacancies and as much staff as they once had, so.
and so the last court was contributing money, this court is taking money.
Correct. And historically, it's been at best break even. And their goal is to break even, but you can see they're slipping.
They're slipping.
Yeah.
And so, is this a court that we have to have? Or is this a court we?
Well, we consolidated the Drain and Reedsport court to there, and we consolidated Glendale and Canyonville to the South County, so they serve a lot other than just traffic ticket stuff, they do tenant and business stuff and civil stuff, so there's a lot of service that is pretty important to that part of the county, that people that live there and businesses, their landlords would have to come all the way over, either to Circuit Court or to Canyonville Court, so the short answer is no, we don't have to have any of these courts. But, you balance out what is $24,000 with what's being provided, and I think we're still getting a pretty good value to the people of that part of the county. But no, we don't have to do it.
Any further discussion?
I so moved to approve the Justice of the Peace, tentatively their budget for Reedsport.
A second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. On to tab 15, Wendy Lang, Juvenile Justice. Juvenile Services, not Justice, sorry.
Hi there. Wendy Lang, Director of the Douglas County Juvenile Department, first time in the hot seat for Budget Committee. Juvenile Department's a vital piece of community safety. It's been a pretty crazy year, 1 year in the seat. When I first came, I sat and met with Dan, kind of gave me a list of expectations, things to look at, a couple line items that we needed to pay a little bit more attention to. I was lucky to step in to an amazing
department that had been established. And so he gave me a list of to-dos. I went back to my department, went with my management team, and we made a decision that we needed to make some decisions and we really needed some enhanced services. It's gonna be pretty much status quo for this budget season, but I would like to touch base on a few things that will be changing. On page 65, one of the first things you'll notice that we have changed a little bit from admin. We are eliminating some management positions. The first thing we did is we eliminated the assistant director. And we are putting those roles back into duties that we already have. We're gonna shift some duties. Really our job is to reduce recidivism, and we really need to promote public safety, youth accountability, and we need to focus on restorative justice. And the way we were gonna do that is feet on the ground. We need to get some services back in. COVID really paid a number on juvenile justice, and so a lot of things became Zoom and virtual. We weren't in schools, didn't have as many kids going to school anymore, so we really needed to get back into the communities. You'll see on that sheet, we really, under juvenile services, we really kind of have 4 separate departments here. There's supervision, there's our detention facility, and there's Rising Light and River Rock, which are residential behavior placements. And if we go to revenue on page 67, I would kind of like to talk there's where there's a couple changes. Our big revenue generator, you'll see it's our contract with DHS. And basically Douglas County boasts one of the most amazing BRS placements in the state, and it's kind of a hidden gem. Nobody really knows it's here. But we are a qualified residential treatment program where the state funds foster youth who are in the system, youth who have really escalated in every other placement and they're not safe in the community, and then they entrust them with our staff. And our job is to spend like 9 to 18 months working on skills so they can be reunited with their families. Today I have with me Sam Swearingen. She has been with our department for 18 years and she manages Rising Light, which is a female facility. And with her is Jessica Epp. She's been with us for 13 years and she manages the co-ed facility. They make this happen. They've been here for quite some time and they're very good at what they do. About December, I was received notification from the state that all the numbers have went down. For people that have been familiar with the contract before, they know that happened. It's nothing that we did, but this contract is a per bed. So every kid that's in our bed, it's a guaranteed rate that we get. Those numbers have went down. They're trying to find other placements for youth. And so we were looking at a loss of about $1.2 million in this contract. Not what I wanted to face on my first year, so we sat down with the staff and we got very creative. And there's a thing called enhanced services, and that means if my staff get trained and up the services that we provide, it's a higher rate, less kids, but it's a higher rate. So we got to working and I spoke to my commissioner. And we figured with the staff we have, we can make those services happen. We can provide some drug and alcohol education, human trafficking support, empowerment groups, aggression replacement, things that these youth need that are above and beyond what we are currently doing. We also realized that if we had additional training, that we could even up that to, some DBT training, bring in a quality assurance officer and really a transition counselor. Again, not asking any more money, it's duties that my staff would take in to be able to up that rate. Bringing in some community partners like ADAPT, Thrive Umpqua, MedTrust that we already have. So we put together something like that. At the same time, Senate Bill 5516 came into play. And this was where the Department of Education was going to expand money that they would give to these facilities to educate our youth. It's my understanding about in 2016, Commissioner Freeman was able to negotiate where the state actually educated the youth in our program. At that time, we had about 50 youth. We ended up going down to about 12, so the state came in and said, we're gonna be doing budget cuts, we need to relook at that. So this just passed. Happy to announce that we reached out to Roseburg School District, and they are going to partner with us. They've applied and received $600,000 to educate our youth. We won't have to take any cut or pay any part of that. So with our current staff, community partners, we were able to tentatively put together a contract to come before the Board of Commissioners for approval, which took our rate from $766 a night to $979, which means there will be no loss in this contract. Our staff will be doing some amazing work, the kids will still be getting the care they need, and we won't see a cut in that. I can give an update. Again, I can't speak enough about Sam and Jess and what they've done to this program, but to run this program, you are under some really strict guidelines. One is the Oregon Health Authority comes in unannounced and they go through everything. And then DHS comes in and they do it. And then you have a national accreditation joint commission comes in and they go through everything from medicine cabinets to files to the facilities. They go through everything to certify you to make sure that you're qualified to do this. And we just nailed all 3 of those inspections. And that's because of the work that these women do and the work that our staff do. Excellent. What I kept hearing is your staff is excellent. The work we do, we change lives of these kids. You know, these are kids who probably have their first Christmas stocking with us, their only bedroom with us, and the chance to reunite with their family. And it's just, like I said, it's a hidden gem over there that nobody would know about, but we employ people and we do good things. So not much, but I did kind of want to update you there. The next thing on there you'll see is detention. Coos County, they're excellent partners. Their contract has continued to stay the same. We did put $5,000 in Curry County, working at presenting a contract for them. There was an increase in jail assessment funds. These are money from the Oregon Department of Corrections, and they're just not really reliable. In October, we got a letter that said you're not gonna get any funds. And then in March, we said it said attached is your $95,000. So we were pleased to get those funds. Looks like it's a biennium thing, so we will have those this year and for this budget. There's only 11 detention centers, juvenile detention centers left in the state of Oregon, so we're very lucky that we can keep this up and running. On the level of the directors, we have formed a subcommittee to try to find additional funding, reaching out to the state, because not knowing if you're gonna get $95,000 or not makes it pretty rough to do that. So I am on the subcommittee and we're looking at of other options there. The last thing I wanted to talk about for detention is there's a 30-day program that we've had, and with our theme of enhanced services, we have just enhanced that. We just had an OYA, Oregon Youth Authority inspection, which we got the verbal approval, and that means if we will start hosting some Oregon Youth Authority youth, that will be additional revenue. That's $4,500 per youth that will complete our 30-day program. So that's pending, but Dan Carr's not here today. He's actually in Bend at a detention meeting, but he's been with us for 15 years and he runs a great facility. Next, kind of going through some of our stuff here, I'd like to talk about the supervision team. Holly Odell's here today with me. She's another member of my management team. She's been here for 19 years. When we looked at refocusing and getting rid of some management and getting more feet on the ground in services, one of the big things we looked at was our supervision team. We had somebody at like Roseburg PD, and we had somebody on weekends and somebody on nights and somebody doing probation. So we brought all those in to make one powerhouse of a supervision team, and that's really, you know, the heart of the juvenile department is really giving services to the youth of Douglas County. The team I have of 6, that we have of 6 working for the youth of our county have 107 years of experience at the Douglas County Juvenile Department. I don't know another county that can even measure the experience that this supervision team brings to the youth that we serve. And when I met with this team of 6, they were just very eager to say, what else can we do? And again, we're not asking for more money, not asking for more staff, they just all took on duties. They're going to the school, they're working on attendance. We have staff that's taking on the interstate kids. We're on I-5, we see a lot of kids run from other states. We're doing more skill building. You will see on here where there's a Department of Education Prevention and it's $67,000. That was pass-through money in the past. We got that money and then we gave it to another agency to take care of some youth for us. That other agency averaged about 1 or 2 youth a year. So now that money is in our department. We started a drug and alcohol program for all our youth. And instead of 2 kids, we're serving a caseload of about 40. So every youth that's referred for drug and alcohol issues in Douglas County gets services free of charge from us. That's really where it starts. Is we need to get them on our first one. Another one you'll see there is OYA Parole Individual Services. Those services, it increased it to about $6,000. It is important to note, those are pass-through dollars from the state that we're to spend on our kids in our community, so they don't get committed to the Oregon Youth Authority. If you don't use them, you lose them. A year ago, we had $2,500 that the state was giving us. It used to be $16,000, but it had been reduced because we weren't using it. This year, we got it up to $7,500 with the guarantee we'll use it, and our goal next year is $16,000. Again, it's not really revenue, but that's direct services to our youth, and it's vital. The last one kind of on supervision, and it's really the same also, it's the $260,000 and it's the diversion funds. Again, that comes from the state of Oregon and they give it to each county and they say, you need to designate what you do with this. And we're putting it back into our community. A lot of what that goes to, it's sex offender treatment. We have a probation officer, P.O. Aslan, and we have Kyle Matz. We're lucky to have him in our community. He's a licensed mental health provider, and we provide sex offender treatment to our youth in our county. In the world of juvenile justice, 3% recidivism on sex offender treatment. That's a huge investment for the youth of our county. So those are, again, they're turnaround dollars. I would like to highlight, this one is pretty amazing, and I know it's only $12,000, but it's on this list, it's called Outside Sales and Services. It's really a contract we have with ODOT. I have a gentleman here today, his name is Enoch Niblett. He's been with the juvenile department for 26 years. Shortly after I got here, Enoch came into my office and said, you know, we get $337 per Saturday for taking kids out and working for ODOT. Not only do we take pride in the highways that belong to Douglas County, but we're teaching these kids how to work, and they can earn restitution dollars. So every hour they work, there's a fund that they can get paid. Let's figure out how we do it. So I came before the board, you guys approved that. It's $12,000, but it'll be more. I went out and spent a day with Enoch and his crew, and it's amazing. He takes pride in this county, takes pride in his job, and he's an amazing mentor. But he's an example of, you know, $12,000 isn't making or breaking our budget, but when you look at what he's giving to the kids in this county, it was important. He didn't have to do that. That's the kind of people that I have in my department. Our younger work crew, we have partnered with actually the Douglas County Parks and Facilities and Maintenance, and they go out and they do trail crew, they refurbish picnic tables, they do the bark around the county facilities. So again, not only are they giving back to the community, but they're also being good partners. I think there's only a few more left here. This was a OYA reimbursement. You'll see it did increase to $36,000. And that's a House Bill 2677 is that juveniles are entitled to have their cases expunged. It's now set up, the state reimburses each department per expunction that we do. We average a lot, probably about 30 every quarter. And so instead of hiring new staff like a lot of other counties do, we have figured out how do we absorb that with the staff we have. So we've brought that in, and no need to hire additional staff, but we do see revenue coming in for that. I think on the bottom, there's been a couple changes, temporary employees and overtime. Overtime is one of the things that Dan said you need to get a grasp on this. We put a policy in place that before overtime is authorized, you must check everybody on the on-call list. And we've reduced overtime a little over $60,000 for this fiscal year, but still keeping the safety and everybody working on their jobs. I think like you had discussed with a couple other departments, we really have a hard time getting people to apply for the job. A lot of our job, we have our frontline job, it doesn't pay really well. But these jobs are, it takes a lot when you're working in a 24/7 facility. You don't get to have a lunch break in your office. You don't get to leave early. You are on the floor with youth who need your direct attention all the time. So we're trying to be more active in recruiting. We recently went back and joined the UCC Reserve Academy with the Sheriff's Department. We've already got a couple people who've applied and have been hired through that pool. So we're working really hard to do that. But as far as revenue goes, not a big change. Actually, we've brought in some additional revenue. I do have just a few things on expenses. There's not a lot in expenses, but on page 68, you will see, that's what I talked about, the juvenile crime prevention that went from 58,000 to 5. That's the one I just touched on earlier, that instead of paying an outside agency, we've brought that in. And we are doing that in-house. And then on page 69, you'll see quite an increase on travel and training. It is vital to what we do. Our employees have to be trained in order to provide these enhanced services. We have to be qualified to take care of the youth that we serve. And I think going through the budget, like I said, there's not a lot that's different. A couple things that we've really worked on this year is we have a tracking program for all our training. I've thrown out enhanced services time and time again today, but if we don't have trained staff, we're not able to do the work that we need to do for the kids of Douglas County. We've expanded our partnerships with local law enforcement agencies. After this meeting today, we have the school resource officers coming in. We've done some after hours information sheets that we're sharing. We have worked with, we have Corey in our office, we've worked with HIPAA compliance, and we have her in a private room now, so we don't have any adult juvenile mix in our department. Worked with, such partners, Recruit HIPAA and Umpqua Health, Charlie Health, just again to bring more resources in. We're not paying for those. Those are things, Douglas County's a wealth of resources for juvenile. We recently just expanded to Reedsport. Years ago, there used to be a juvenile office there, hasn't been for a while, so we've just started that process. Right now, it's only 1 day a month. We'll get to 2 days a month and then more. Reach out to those partners over there. Just worked with the state to get a driving simulator into our detention facility to get some skills while the youth are there. We've extended our office hours. We started our safety committee again. Even within our department, a lot of the accreditation I talked about, having to be state certified, means that we have to be safe on site. We did, there was a new medical contract that we share with the Sheriff's Department, didn't cover all of our facilities, so we've enhanced that to cover that, working with Thrive Umpqua. Actually, Thrive Umpqua is coming into detention next week. They're gonna look at the food we serve. Not only are we gonna work on getting it healthier, but the cost will drop. And I've also got a newsletter and a suggestion box going out. We've had some great suggestions from employees. The work that I'm honored to work with these 60 employees of yours. The work they do, sometimes it goes unnoticed. Juvenile justice is really kind of a confidential department that we run. But these staff know what it's like, they know their duty, they know their assignment to be public servants, they answer their phone at 2 a.m. They care about the kids that they work with. It's not always easy, but it's very rewarding, and sometimes it just takes, one caring adult to make that difference. So I think these people have you guys in good hands. They work tirelessly, they're dedicated to the job they do, and I believe that they are trying to make every dollar count that we get. We are definitely community safety, and they are working very hard for you. Any questions?
Wendy, you came into your job into a program that we all had a tremendous amount of confidence in and knew was a good program. But I asked you specifically, I'm the liaison commissioner of juvenile department, to not just come in and take over what was there, but to bring a new fresh set of eyes and see what things needed to be improved and made better. And you have reinstated old programs that had fallen by the wayside, put things back together, I think re-energized your crew. You got a great staff of people over there, and like you said, most of this work happens sort of behind the scenes, and the community doesn't really know that it's happening. But we, as commissioners, a lot of times take a beating for things that are outside of our control, like homelessness issues and things like that. But I would point out that the work that you do is right up that alley. All of these kids that you're serving have the potential to either be homeless now or end up that way in the future without the resources that you connect them with. So as much as we struggle sometimes having to spend money on this juvenile budget and try to get it to a place where it doesn't cost the county as much, only because of our dwindling resources, not because we don't believe it's a priority. The amount of work that you've done to add the additional training and get the additional certifications and to continue to provide value to the state and other agencies in the state that need that service is really what's made this thing go. And that's you and your staff needed to have the credit for that. So I'm very grateful. Whenever you come to my office, it is always my goal to be able to say yes to whatever you need. I think I've got a pretty good track record of that. Sometimes we have to figure out a way to make it happen, but I want to make sure that you and your staff have what you need to continue to keep doing this work. So, grateful for you.
A couple quick questions if I may. So your Coos County contract, first let me start by saying thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the work you do here. I was fortunate enough to be the liaison to the department when I first got here and got to know a lot of the people, and more importantly, got to know the value of the work that they do for children. And I'll cover some more of that in a second, but how many beds does Coos County contract with us?
It's not a set amount of beds. Yeah, well, I guess it is per days. It's per days, yes. And I don't have, Ellen, do you have that exact number?
They have 40 dozen, I get it.
They can also use that in the 30-day program as well. Yeah.
3 beds, is that what she said?
Yes.
Yeah, so instead of them running their own detention center, they're contracting with us for that work. And when you talked about the limited number of detention centers, that's how those counties take care of their detention needs, is a contract with somebody that has a center. So that's what Coos County's doing with us. Josephine County's been up and down. They get a levy passed and they don't get a levy passed, and they've had it, not had it. So we have a contract with them for a while too. So this foster care, which is not part of the juvenile justice system per se, it's part of the foster care program, but it's youth that have had really difficult placements. And I think it's fair to say, but for this facility or facilities like it, many of these youths have the likelihood, or at least potential, of becoming homeless, right? That they're not gonna go home, they're not gonna be in a program, they're gonna live somewhere, and a lot of times that's on the street. or couch surfing with friends or whatever, so, just the fact, much like the senior program we talked about, this is one of those places where we invest in trying to keep people from becoming homeless in sort of a way people don't necessarily recognize. I think it's important for people to know that. This foster care program at the county has evolved in a variety of ways. It's expanded, it's contracted, it's done a bunch of different things just in the time that Commissioner Boyce and Chris have been here, trying to figure out, the right size and the right funding. I know at least twice, once when I was liaison and more recently when Commissioner Boyce was liaison, we've had to go to bat with the state about the cost. And to the point we've had to get to, and this is a very difficult place to get, but you gotta say, hey, if you're not gonna pay for it, you can't do it. And to the state's credit, each time we've gotten to that point, they've stepped up. And we've gone to bat for that to save this program multiple times. Because of the value of it, because of the incredible staff that's doing the work and the outcomes that they're able to achieve. I found it interesting, you talked about Oregon Youth Authority, so I was liaison when we quit doing work with Oregon Youth Authority because their expectation of the work that we were gonna do for what they were willing to pay was unrealistic. So we just simply quit doing that work. I'm excited for you to take another bite of the apple, but please do that equation when you're working with them and make sure it's worth it.
Yes.
And that sounds funny to say it, with the budget committee. I mean, it's always worth it to help youth, but financially it needs to be worth it. If we're taking on roles and contracting with the state to do work, they need to pay for it. And then finally, you talked a little bit about the youth going out and doing some of the work in the community. There was a chance for us to get a new van for the juvenile department to take these youth up to continue to do the work on Forest Service property, but our van wasn't safe to drive up there anymore, so we applied for a Title II grant, which is a component of Secure Rural Schools that the agency actually runs that program. And I went to the committee hearing and we had a great presentation to buy this van, basically to take these youth up to campgrounds in the Forest Service to do their maintenance work for them for free. And the dollars, that we come back for restitution and all that was all figured out, but it chose not to fund that program. So now, we've found a different way to get them safe vehicles, but you focus on other areas than the Forest Service. I think they missed a heck of an opportunity there. That's been a decade ago, so, I'm glad we're not doing stuff for the Forest Service, so they're not willing to help us, with the simple cost of a van, so. Been a lot of ebbs and flows in this department, but we're excited for you to be here. You have a wealth of experience, and there was a point where this department was on path to become zero revenue from the general fund. I think we were down to somewhere around $200,000 through the histories, but it is the requirements for them from the state to do this work and the amount of money they're willing to pay and all the different factors, it's kind of going the other direction. So I appreciate you continuing to find ways to make it work.
And when the state came in this time, I sat down with Dan and he did some amazing work for me to really show the BRS and the detention or the juvenile department, it is an amazing partnership. It really is a win-win for everybody because we broke down my time, staff's time, every single person who spends just an hour either in BRS or probation, it's split. And when we broke that down and sent it to the state, there was no questions asked, is because a lot of the private people that are providing that service, they've had to close their doors. They don't have like a legal department or an HR department or a finance department.
Something to subsidize what the state's willing to pay for, and that's the point I'm trying to make to the budget committee. There's that point where, at times, I think a lot of the youth are from Douglas County, but at times they're not from Douglas County, or some of them aren't, so there's again, the cost benefit of the budget committee to look at. But for the quality of the program and the people you have working for you, I'm convinced that this program may not be here anymore. But again, I'm so grateful for the work that's being done and the lives that are being changed in that department and set down the right path. So we'll continue to find ways to make it happen.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Move to tentatively approve the juvenile budget as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, could we take a, like, 5-minute break or so? Short,
I'm
Like a
okay
cup
with
of
that, you guys
coffee?
okay? 5 minutes. Back in session with the Douglas County Budget Committee meetings, continuing on with tab 10, grant administration.
Good morning. Yes, good morning, Budget Committee and Commissioners. My name is Corey Tate, and I serve as the Douglas County Local Public Safety Coordinating Council, which is known as LIPSIC Coordinator and Grant Administrator. I'm a Department of One, so with 90% of my funds come through grant administration, then the 10% is what you just heard through Wendy from the Juvenile Department for HIPAA. In my role, I organize and facilitate LIPSIC quarterly meetings, LIPSIC Behavioral Health and Housing Subcommittee monthly meetings, HIPAA committee meetings, Impacts committee meetings, which is for mobile crisis, and then the Douglas County Forensic Treatment Court committee meetings and program activities. In addition to coordinating meetings, I actively participate in 27 additional committees and work groups, including 3 task force, as well as local and state meetings, and my recent appointment to the State Treatment Court Advisory Committee to the Chief Justice. As grant administrator, I work closely with our treatment courts and public safety partners to apply, manage, monitor, and report on several critical grants that we have here for Douglas County. I'm also a team member for both of the courts and treatment program. I currently facilitate and monitor 8 grants. And so those 8 grants are the Justice Reinvestment Program Grant, Federal RSAT for residential substance abuse treatment, Criminal Justice Commission known as CJC for adult drug court, CJC Mental Health Court, CJC Impacts, which is the mobile crisis program, Second Chance Act grant through the Bureau of Justice, the CJC JMOOD grant, which is the jail-based medication for opioid use disorder, and the Umpqua Health Alliance grant for a treatment court video project that I'm working on. The current combined total of these grants is $4,386,200.75. Several of the state grants allow an inclusion of administration funding that assists with operational costs associated with grant management, expenditures, and compliance. They allow up to a 10% of the grant award, which is the intergovernmental revenue section shown on the budget, which covers my costs. The contributions and donations section that you may not be used to seeing is the budget from the Douglas County Forensic Treatment Courts. It's a restricted line item budget that I worked with Dan about, so we can start receiving donations for our treatment courts. A lot of the grants that we have for treatment courts do not allow for certain items that we're trying to do is getting guest speakers, having unity days, incentive programs, different things for the courts and the grants don't allow. So this allows us to have some extra funds on hand to handle those things.
And you have someone making donations and contributions to you, or you're expecting them?
We have had some. It's an alumni run program, and then I am the facilitator that oversees it. So we don't have actual staff working on the donation request. It's alumni from our treatment courts. And they have asked, we've received some funds from the NAMI, which is the National Mental Health Alliance group, and we've received funds from Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians.
So these people that go through the program are see so much value in it, even after they've graduated through the drug court program and are on the right path, they want to give back and help the next group come through. That's what she's working on.
Yeah, we've had some reductions across the board for some of our state grants, and some of that goes towards some of the supplies and then certain incentives they'll never pay for. And so we'll help with gas cards, some food vouchers, different things if needed for folks when they're first coming back into reentry for the community.
Questions, and I'll let Commissioner Boyce talk because this is his liaison. But, through the treatment court, we support 3 different treatment courts here. And I know specifically in the drug court, but I believe in the other courts too. I think stable housing and permanent housing are part of the goals and the requirements and accountability model.
Correct. We have funds set aside for housing to help them get into Oxford homes or something similar.
So this is another place where the county supports housing and tries to prevent homelessness in a way that people don't traditionally think. But it's an accountability model. It's not just throwing money, away to have a problem the next day. These folks are on the path of getting better. And then this is an easy question, but although the public somehow, there's a group in the public that don't understand it. As the LIPSIC coordinator, I think you'll be able to answer this, and if not, Dan can help you. How much does Douglas County receive to do parole and probation work?
Nothing, because that's a state fund, so it's handled state-wise, it's not through Lipsick. I have some members on our Lipsick board, but we do not have money for us.
So I think that's pretty interesting, and thank you for answering that clearly. There's one other county, Lynn County and Douglas County don't do parole and probation as county functions of government, it's state function of government here. There's a law that if the state doesn't fund parole and probation at the level that it costs to do it, and lots of argument about that level, but they set a level in the legislature, and that's the level. And if ever the funding drops below that, counties can opt out and have the state do that work. Well, 1 year they dropped below, and 2 counties opted out, Lynn County and Douglas County, and this was quite a while ago. When I was in the legislature, I was on the subcommittee that did this work, Ways and Means, and they literally tell you that number. I mean, they just say that's the number. You can't fund below that because all the counties will opt out, or a lot of them would. So, but there's some folks in the community that think somehow the county's receiving all this money for parole and probation to provide housing for these people that aren't parole and probation and a whole bunch of other things that simply is not true. And they're using AI to come up with these statements and this diatribe, because it would be true in other counties, all but 2 of the 36 counties. So anyway, thank you for answering that, and thank you for the great work you do. And I want to compliment Commissioner Boyce for taking on Lipsick and continuing to find ways to coordinate all that work in the community. It's being done well, and you've been a great addition to the team.
Thank you. I also want to mention we do have a housing component with our Bureau of Justice grant. So that let us hire a discharge planner in the jail. Her purpose is to specifically help folks reentry into society with transportation, to housing, employment applications, continued treatment if they were through the medication assisted therapy program in the jail. So she does a lot of work with that. We just received a housing request today from her to help someone that's leaving the jail that needed that consistency and into sober and clean housing, so they're getting into an Oxford space.
Yeah, so this is some of the most rewarding work I think we get to do, and for those of you who haven't had the opportunity to go to a drug court graduation, you just need to go as a community member just to see what happens there. But it's this opportunity to have a Lipsick coordinator really came to us through a CJC grant several years ago, and when that money first became available, it was something that I argued for, because everyone who's involved in Lipsick, and we say the acronym, it stands for Local Public Safety Coordinating Council, and it's made up of a commissioner and the sheriff and chiefs of police from around the community. There's a member from the tribal police and the presiding judge, someone from the DA's office, the district attorney himself, someone from defense attorney, and some of the treatment providers in the community all make up this committee. And the idea is to get everyone in the community connected and on the same page as far as completing their role in the continuum of criminal justice that Commissioner Freeman mentioned earlier, and get everybody talking to each other so that we're all pulling the same direction. And every one of those people that's a member of that committee has a full-time job. But meeting and doing this extra work is difficult because we really didn't have staff to support it. And so this grant opportunity came around, and we happened to be in a position at the time where we could hire a coordinator, a full-time coordinator, but share that person half-time with Josephine County. And we hired a gal that was here before you to do that. And when the money ran out through that grant program, which it often does, we saw the value in that and decided that we needed to continue to provide that service. And our goal has been, and Katie, you mentioned this earlier, all of these grants come with an administrative fee portion that we get to carve out, and we use that money to pay for her position. And the goal is to break even, and we're not quite there, but we also feel like the work that's being done has value. And so we have invested a little bit of money in having this position every year to make this work. But since we've had this position, and specifically Melissa, who did a good job before you, but specifically since Corey's been here, she has taken this to the next level and created some things that aren't required of the position at all, but gotten involved at a level that have made the programs really that much better. So it's a worthwhile investment. If you ever doubt that, go to a drug court graduation. Commissioner Freeman also mentioned, and I'll add to it, that, you know, in order to be a successful graduate of these programs, I'm more familiar with drug courts, so that seems to, you know, that's sort of my focal point, but there's some requirements. You know, you have to have stable employment. You have to have stable housing. And there really aren't any loopholes or excuses. And understanding that the housing market out there is tough. The point I'm trying to make is that when someone wants housing, there's housing available and they have to go find it. And that's a requirement of this program. And it would, again, we sort of take a beating for not being able to solve the homeless problem, which mostly exists within the city. But this is another one of those programs, and I think we're 3 or 4 in now, that has a homelessness component to it that we're funding to make sure that we're doing our part there. And all of these folks would be on the street if not for the programs that we've got them involved in. And it may be interesting to folks here in the room and anyone who may be watching to know that there's 100+ vacant beds available in Roseburg for people who are living on the street to occupy every single day in this community, every single day. Those beds are primarily at the Mission, but there's others. And the point I'm trying to make is that the people that are out there on the street in Roseburg today are there because that's their choice. That's where they want to be because they don't want to follow the rules or do whatever's necessary in order to be someplace else. And these folks that we work with have made a decision to follow the rules and to change their lives. And that's what it takes. That's the reason why homelessness is never going to be solved, is because the only people that can solve it are the people that are on the street. They gotta want something different. But congratulations to you, everyone involved in these programs. I'm gonna urge people again to go to the next drug court graduation and see. We've had to move those drug court graduations from the judge's courtroom to the fairgrounds and use a portion of the community building, which is about to have to be expanded because everyone's overflowing over there. And it's great work that's being done in our community, great work. So
July 7th is the next graduation at 5:15 p.m.
July 7th, 5:15 p.m. at the fairgrounds.
How many typically graduate?
It really varies on the group. Right now, I have 3 gentlemen that are gonna be graduating for July 7th. 3. Overall, since we started in 1996, we've had 669 graduates. And then just last year alone, we saved the state $4.56 million by keeping those folks local here to be treated and go through our program.
That would have been the cost of
Prison
their
costs.
prison stays, yeah. So, and I believe the outcome's better, you know, so. I've been involved in the program a bunch of different ways, but I've also promoted what they call second chance employment. So I employ some of these people at my business as mechanics and tire techs. I've got 2 working there now. Unfortunately, I had one that was there that we really liked, and he didn't comply with the program and he got sent to prison. So there's accountability built in, and that hurts us, you know, when we've got a appointment book full of appointments and one of our guys doesn't show up because his PO's got him. It's tough for me, but it's the way it works, and we continue to support the program, and as do a bunch of other employers in the community. So it's certainly a team effort.
Any other comments? Questions?
Move to tentatively approve the grant administration budget.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Now we move on to tab 12. Information technology.
Somehow we got way behind schedule.
We did.
I'm talking too much, I'm sorry.
Hi, Nancy Laney, IT Director, before you. For the IT department, you'll notice there's a 3% increase on personnel services, just cost of living, and as well as application services that increase their rates, and that would be the 12% you see. Other than that, we're just doing steady state, status quo, and no changes for IT.
Move to tentatively approve the IT budget
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Questions?
for a very complicated job you do.
It's just so that the community understands this is what protects our computer systems, right?
Was all our computer systems
Yes.
and what protects them.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure that was clarified to people that are watching might not know. Okay, we have a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, you're passed. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Also, there's another hat just coming up.
Oh, public safety fund, radio system, tab 30.
Tab 30. All right. Hi, Nancy Laney, Radio Director.
Next tab.
Next tab. All right, so you'll notice on here we have some numbers. Let me just break it down for you simple. We had a lot of project work going on. You guys have heard about our $20 million grant. We've been working on that this last year. We had a lot of increased expenses as part of that. Going into this next year, we have year 2 of the grant. It's a very small portion that's left, so all of our expenses are dropping back down. So we're status quo. In the end, you'll see us posting back into our normal steady state in the following year. We're just finishing up some of that grant work.
One quick question, if I may.
Yes.
So did you ever think you were gonna become an expert in radio when you took the job here?
Heavens, no. I did not even know how to spell VHF or UHF. But now, would you like to know what the frequency channels are?
So I asked Commissioner Kress this, we had delegated authority to Commissioner Kress to work with you to finish this project in I think it's like, supposed to be about a 3-year project, I think you did it in, 8 months? 9 months? Pretty incredible work the two of you have done together, and I asked him that question the other day, if he, when he ran for county commissioner, if he ever thought he was gonna be an expert in radio, the radio project for replacing all this equipment, and it's just amazing what sort of gets put in front of us at times, so thank you for
I'm
that.
afraid I've mentioned that to her a couple times in our meeting. I said, I know far too much about this stuff.
That's right, that's right. Yeah, we had to get a little deeper than we planned, but we made it happen.
So what was the capital outlay? What was the capital outlay?
On that project, the total project, we originally spent $2 million prior to this current grant. We had a 1.5 million grant. We subsidized it with $600,000. This grant was 17.5 million. We've spent 11 million. We have another 3.5 million in year 2 that we're getting right now. And potentially
$20 million plus project.
$20 million project.
And of the $20 million, how much of that was grants?
All of it.
Oh, all of it.
Well, except for the 600,000.
Okay, that's right.
There's been
Radios that weren't included.
well, part of the radios were under grant, part of them were not.
It's actually been starting, we've gotten a lot of grants actually to do this project,
Yeah.
but that's the big one.
Yeah, for sure. And an interesting thing about this grant, when we originally applied for it, it was a 25% match. Then the state came in and gave us down to a 10% match, then COVID and other things happened and we got a 0% match. So we actually got the whole 17.5 million plus another $890,000 for grant management. So, and with no match. So we had to buy these little radios, but I count that as the match.
So, I said this when we sort of finished out one of the contracts. Politically, it was not a good decision to move forward with this because of the timeline. Knowing that major IT problem, projects, this incredible radio system, access issues, 19 towers, trying to get it done in the wintertime when there's snow and all those things that could have come up. There's a good chance we could have got to the end and not got it turned on, then we would have had to pay for everything. We had to do it. It was a grant where you had to complete the project and then get funded for it.
Oh,
It's a
And
reimbursement grant,
it-
and you had to be
it was-
100%
it was
functioning
quite
to
the
get
risk.
reimbursed.
The county took, but we saw no other opportunity moving forward to get this kind of funding, and this radio system was well out of date when we got here, over a decade ago. So, it was kind of the one shot, the moonshot to do this, and, again, I'm gonna give Commissioner Krause and Nancy and our vendors and everybody that worked on it a bunch of credit for this. We gambled on it, and gamble maybe isn't the right word. We decided that the risk was worth what the reward would be. So they're still dialing the radio in, the tuning part is still happening, but we met the grant timelines, and pretty amazing work, you and your team, and again, I'm gonna keep saying Commissioner Kress, because we delegated authority to him, and there was some unique ways to go about getting that work done.
Okay.
Video?
Everybody, okay?
Yep.
This $883,000, is that
SIP money.
SIP money from Rosewood Forest Products?
Okay.
any other discussion?
So, does everybody understand what that is?
Zip money?
It's a strategic investment program that Commissioner Boyce negotiated with Roseburg Forest Products for their $700 million manufacturing investment. There was a portion of that that could come back to the county in some of the work that they did, and this is just the first partial payment. That number will grow, but should be north of $1 million when it's all settled down, and of additional revenue coming into the county every year. For 20 years.
For 20 years?
Oh, wow.
It was
Good job.
not an easy thing to negotiate, and Commissioner Boyce got everybody on the same page.
Well, one more thing about the radio system too, is that we don't talk about a lot, that, this system comes with basically a warranty. We didn't have that before, so we were spending a ton every year just to repair and replace and get the thing going.
Buying parts wherever we could find them, because they weren't making them anymore.
So we could, we may not see our investment go, our yearly expense go down, but it will be down considerably what it would have been if we hadn't done it.
For sure, yeah. And with the maintenance program that we have with this program, they will do hardware replacement, so we'll never have to do this $20 million reinvestment in 15 years when the system's outdated. The warranty that we have in place includes hardware replacement at end of life, so they will just keep refreshing it.
Won't get behind the curve again.
Till we go to Starlink.
Coming quick. That's right. Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve. Go ahead.
Oh, we tentatively approve the Public Safety Radio System Fund as presented.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.
Thank you very much. You guys have a great day.
You too.
Next one is the Assessor's Office,
Thank you
tab
for your
21.
patience.
Thank you for your patience. Good afternoon.
Hello, Heather Koffel, Douglas County Assessor. So in Oregon, property taxes help support police, fire protection, education, cemetery, and other services. The Oregon property tax system represents one of the most important sources of revenue for local governments. The assessor's office not only values property to generate revenues, but we also administer and implement many property tax programs such as low-income housing exemption, farm forest special assessments, and our senior deferral and veterans exemption programs help our most vulnerable populations. In 2025 tax year, the total taxable assessed value in Douglas County was $12,477,506,830. This is the value that tax rates are applied to generate the revenues for 119 taxing districts in Douglas County. For many of these 119 districts, property taxes is 100% of their general fund. While the assessor's office does not work for any one single taxing district, we are funded out of the general fund of the county, which is a 1% expense to the county. There are many unfunded mandates that dictate the workload of the assessor's office in Oregon each year. One of the most recent changes that has significantly impacted our office this past year is House Bill 3940, which increased the land coverage covered by rural fire protection districts from 5 acres to 10 acres in a single ownership. This is the very simplified statement for that bill. This change at last count has impacted 16,000 accounts in Douglas County. Not only does this workload impact us from the record keeping and valuation of these properties, but also working with taxpayers to explain the changes and the impact to their property values and their taxes. In 2025, our office had 16,559 points of contact from all things assessment and tax in Douglas County. I expect that we will have a significant uptick, as in probably double the amount of these points of contacts this year due to the significant change of the rural fire protection coverage. Short and sweet.
So, because you think the public doesn't know about this rural fire district change?
Correct,
And so isn't that something you could put like the little tabs you put in the thing when you mail the property tax statement out? Couldn't you
So unfortunately, most of those
stop those
mailers
calls?
end up in the garbage. I hope as we get closer, the sooner you tell people, the sooner they forget. So as we get closer to tax season, I'm hoping that we will be able to do something to public blast, so the public can be aware of that they will see a change, because a lot of people are gonna go from having 2 or 3 tax bills to having 1, or having 2 or 3 tax bills to now you have 5. So it's not always a positive, it is also a negative in how it's going to affect the amount of tax statements that will go out. So yes, but yeah, the mailers usually are a failure, so probably it's not that
And they're an
option.
expense to us to bring in revenue for the fire departments. There's no.
I just thought when she was saying it was gonna be increased double her call load, I thought maybe that would
You're
stop.
gonna get a bunch of calls, you bet, but
I thought maybe that would stop the calls.
I wish.
I think it might increase the calls.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Couple things if I may.
yes.
First, I want to congratulate you on your reelection. Your style of campaigning is perfect. Running unopposed is the easiest way to run a reelection, but
Exactly.
that says an awful lot about what people think of the work you're doing, so good job.
Thank you.
I appreciate the difficulties of the work that your office does and the magnitude of, 119 different customers. I mean, I get that. There's 119 different tax districts that you are solely responsible for assessing value. We talked about this when we did the tax collection, because tax collection is responsible for collecting the money. And the county, of course, is of that, it's about 8% of our total revenue. So, it's a important function that you do, and it's important for these other taxing districts. The disconnect in those taxing districts from the importance amazes me. I mean, they literally, we've had this talk, you could do much better work with more people, which would generate more revenue for the taxing districts, but not one of them have ever suggested that they could help pay for that. Not one of them. And it's just sort of amazing to me that there's no correlation, right? I mean, if you're pick on the city of Roseburg, because they got a very nice high tax rate and a very high value, for what would be, 1 or 2 FTE cost, they could generate far more than what that would cost, but they don't even want to entertain that conversation. So thank you for continuing to do the work.
The Assessors Association has worked for the last several years to try to get additional funding for the assessor's office from those taxing districts. And the biggest opponents of it are the cities and special districts, because, well, the county provides that service, so why should we have to pay for
I
it?
think it falls
So-
out of the sky, yeah.
Yeah, so it is a major disconnect, unfortunately.
And you're required by legislature to provide the service, yeah.
And I would contend we're doing the minimum required, and some would argue below the minimum required.
Heather, read that number again, the value of the real estate.
The taxable assessed value?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
12,477,506,830 dollars.
So just for the people who might be listening, $12 billion worth of real estate in Douglas County, and the county's share of the revenue from the property taxes is about 13 million. So we get a pretty small share. The vast majority of the work that you do is for the taxing districts that aren't the county. The amount of revenue that is billed for, the amount of property that's assessed, billed for, and collected for everyone other than us far exceeds what we get, but we pay the entire bill. So it's, and Heather, I get it. I know that you've talked to the state and said, hey, you know, we're struggling getting everything we need to get done. We've had them come down and do an assessment. They agree with you. We know that it's a problem. But when you look at the scope of services that we are tasked to provide and the amount of money that we have to provide them and how that money needs to be allocated, it's pretty obvious that there's a problem with tax assessment in Oregon that goes beyond our ability to solve here. And I appreciate you talking to the legislature about it and encourage you to continue to keep doing that. I move to tentatively approve the assessor's budget as presented.
I'll second that.
I've got one question. How's this value been over the last couple of years? Has it been increasing at a very small amount because, you know, I'm sure there've been a lot of reassessments with mills, with, commercial properties that have become vacant. Do you have a?
So I would say on a whole, our market has been steady or stagnant. I suspect, and I have already seen the evidence that this year, 25, so therefore it really won't impact us until 26. Sorry, we're in 26, it really won't impact us until 27. I think we're gonna see a significant drop. Many of our large employers are calling to say, hey, we may have to shut down. We're not gonna we may, so there goes some of our tax base, because obviously if they start to shutter some of those larger facilities, I mean, C&D lumber is no longer, so I mean, some of those tax bases have disappeared, and you know, and so I suspect that, because our commercial market has always been very slow, but yeah, I think we're gonna start seeing some even bigger impacts on our bigger value properties, unfortunately.
Heather, that $12 billion number, is that real market value or is it assessed value?
That is the assessed value, so the amount that the taxes will be based upon.
So what you should know there, and maybe this changes in the near future, maybe it doesn't, but because of measures 5 and 50, assessed value is capped at 3% a year.
Yes, I realize that, yeah.
So there's very few exceptions to that. So essentially, you know, that's the assessed value, but the real market value out there is probably considerably higher than that, and we're not realizing the difference.
And that assessed value doesn't get stepped up unless property changes hands.
And if our market continues to drop, that assessed value will not increase by 3%, because we have the measure 5 compression that will go into that. So that 3% increase that's supposed to be standard won't exist. It could be 1%, it could be nothing, it could go 7%, depending on how harsh the market goes.
There is kind of a buffer built in though, because properties that have not been brought up can be quite a bit under, so it would take a really large drop of value before that happens. Others are very close, but some are a long ways away, and that system over time does create sort of a buffer or shock absorber in that quick swing.
And I know people look at, for example, the Bend area and think about, wow, look at all the things they have, the new schools and everything, but fail to realize that, you know, so much of that is new construction that is assessed at a current market value. And that's huge tax base.
They have a different rate.
Yes, right.
And this is all done, we're gonna vote on a tax rate of $1.11 a thousand, largely because we had other funding streams and the county did not need to raise that tax rate for a very long time.
But yeah, we actually do have a couple of large subdivisions coming online, so that's not, it's in Sutherland, so that's kinda nice.
Sure.
So that'll help. That helps out the one a little bit.
And the apartment complexes they built on Diamond Lake, aren't those all new as well? Does it-
Diamond Lake, it's low-income housing, so and the city has chosen to extend a low-income housing exemption, and so they don't pay property taxes. However, the new apartment complexes in Sutherland are not low-income housing and do pay property taxes.
So all the apartment complexes on Diamond Lake Boulevard are low income?
All the stuff on Sunshine Road.
Sunshine Road, but the other ones?
Yeah, Oak Ridge and whatever the stuff that's off of Pomona, yes, those are fully taxable, but Sunshine is not.
Sunshine is not. Okay, we have a motion and a second, I believe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One more of those programs the state puts in place to take.
On to tab 16, the Douglas County Museum.
Jonas Davis, Director at the Douglas County Museum. We were asked to remain status quo, so we basically were able to do that. Just small increases for utilities and all of that type of normal stuff.
One quick comment if I may, and want to talk about how great of job you do and your team does and the amount of things that are going on. I know, I'm not your liaison, but it'd be an honor to be your liaison. The work that's going on over at the coast and the stuff here in inland is spectacular. This is also one of those departments that was heading towards a zero general fund contribution that has been creeping the other way. So they've done amazing things of trying to find additional revenue sources, and they run a little gift shop and you know, basically a restaurant over at the lighthouse and some different things to bring revenue in, but it still continues to be a challenge to try to make it self-sufficient, but they continue to look for ways. So thank you for the work you do.
So this is the one at the lighthouse and the one at the fairgrounds, both included in one budget? Yes, that's what I thought.
Well, and I would say that, you know, as much as he, you know, and I think we're probably understating the revenue here, we usually do, but as much as we increase the revenue every year over there and do things, we just can't get ahead. It just keeps staying, you know.
But we have been putting in $125,000 a year to do building maintenance.
Yeah, and we've
that
done a
hadn't been
lot
done for years and years, so.
Unfortunately, we're gonna continue to have to do that.
Next couple of years, we will be coming to an end of that.
I noticed the other day, I mean, that building has been painted since I've been there at the coast, and it needs painted again.
It's been done a couple times since I've been here.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
And we continually do touch up on it.
Coast is just hard on facilities, that coastal
just
weather is just difficult.
I will tell you that any of you who have not been to the coastal property should. I mean, it's pretty stinking amazing. And
A lot
it's
of people
all-
don't know about the restaurant though, because I've told several people about the restaurant, they don't know.
It's continued to grow a little as we go. It's tough over there.
The road open now?
They opened it up right before the holiday.
Yeah, it's supposed to have been open by Friday.
I didn't know if they were gonna close it again.
Nope.
To do the paving, but.
Nope, it's supposed to stay open.
It definitely hurt us a little bit for a couple of months, but for the most part, we've been up almost every month.
Good work.
I move to tentatively approve the museum budget as presented.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And we move on to planning, tab 19.
Good morning, Chair Jones and Budget Committee members. Joshua Shackley, Douglas County Planning Director. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Planning Department budget for fiscal year 26 and 27. Wanted to provide the committee with a brief overview of the services provided by Douglas County Planning, just as a refresher. The Planning Department provides land use and development services to developers and citizens of Douglas County. We work seamlessly with the Building Department to approve development projects, many of which can be approved over our front counter. More complex land use applications like conditional use permits and land partitions are handled at the staff level by senior planning staff. Still other decisions like plan amendments, zone changes require that they go through the Planning Commission and sometimes the Board of Commissioners. Development activity in the county has slowed, but our year-to-date numbers for 2026 are similar to the numbers we saw at this point in the calendar year last year. So it doesn't appear that things are getting slower. They've leveled off a bit. But looking back on the past 5 years, there's been quite a bit of fluctuation, so it's hard to attribute a larger trend to the numbers we're seeing. I would note that this slowdown is not fully reflected in the revenue you're seeing as part of our proposed budget, because we did institute new departmental fee schedule January 1st, 2025. So that helps make up the difference. I would also note that it had been about 10 years since we had updated our fee schedule. So when we made that change, we were playing catch up, and it's still very affordable compared to other places in Oregon. Douglas County Planning also carries out long-range planning work, developing and maintaining strategic plans like the County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan and the Transportation System Plan. We just completed an update to the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, which was partially funded through Title III money. It's coming before the board in the next several weeks for their approval. We also manage the coastal planning and floodplain development programs for the county. Beyond these planning services, our department also administers the code enforcement program for Douglas County. We enforce building, land use, solid waste, sanitation, and environmental health codes under the board's direction. We've developed new enforcement tools and processes that have been very effective in getting a number of problem properties across the county. As part of this, we've carried out some cleanup efforts in the past years, either through an injunction relief process, which goes through circuit court, or the county has a nuisance abatement ordinance which we can employ to get things a little faster. It limits some of what we can do. We've had a lot of success working closely with county council, Douglas County Sheriff's Office, Public Works, and Solid Waste, and making a significant dent in the worst problem properties across the county. And these typically involve substantial accumulation of solid waste, often involve squatters or others residing out of RVs, so they can be pretty involved operations. In fact, we completed one last week, and we have one more coming up next week, so this is something we're very active in doing. Planning also administers the ambulance service and special districts programs for the county. We also operate the county mailroom for the entire county. Planning staff includes 14.5 FTE, which is what we came in with last year. One of these FTE is paid for by the building department. The proposed department budget is a status quo budget and requires a general fund contribution of $1,380,259, which is an increase of 6% from the current fiscal year budget. This is primarily due to increased personal service costs. Thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions or go into more detail on any of the items discussed.
Do you have any questions?
Just real quick, thank you for the work you do. And I want to point this out because I think it's important that everybody understands, as a budget committee, our commitment to trying to keep fees and cost of services down. So there was a point where the fees and revenue generated represented a little over 60% of the cost of this program. Today it's down to about 34%. So that is a conscious choice to not put the burden of the state planning laws and rules onto the developers and property owners to develop, and trying to keep our fees and costs down. So we're making that decision again today, if we approve this budget, to continue to try to keep those costs as low as possible for the people that are developing the properties.
So let me add to that. You're absolutely right. There's going to be a time soon when we don't have that option. Right? We're in a place now where we're spending down reserves, and at several points throughout the day, yesterday and today, we have, by tentatively approving certain departments' budgets, effectively agreed to subsidize or lessen the impact of our state government.
Yes.
So that's, we're doing that to try to cushion the folks that live in Douglas County. And it's an economic development strategy. It's a reduced barriers to housing strategy. It's all of those things that the public are concerned about, and us doing our part to try to minimize the effect of essentially what's happening at the state legislature on the people in Douglas County. Our ability to continue to do that's limited.
And one thing I question for Dan, really, I'm sure you could provide information, is it, I see we're gonna drop off next year, or maybe we'll at least drop off subsurface sewage off the little blue, tab down below where it broke out. I would love to look at this and see exactly how much we're actually spending on compliance. It would be a really good tale, because this is something that we've also made a conscious choice of doing to keep our communities in a spot that is attractive to people coming in here. And, you can't really see how much we're doing there. I don't know if that's feasible, if that's something we can do.
I think it's something
It's a significant part of the job. He touched on that a little bit, but I mean, we work on that every day. And so it's, that's a bunch of work.
It's been a huge emphasis of this board, and it involves not just our department, it involves county council. It's been a priority, so.
I'd been working on that a little while before I had asked him a question, because he didn't know the answer to my question. And he says, well, honestly, and until this board got here, he said, we never did that work here at the county before. It's what getting done. It's what it was.
Give an example
So,
of the type of.
cleaning up these properties like we had to do. We have a property where somebody inherits this from their grandmother, and then it becomes a drug flop house next to it in a nice neighborhood. And they accumulated, solid waste. They will no longer go to the, say the trash bill, no longer, the pile just goes up, the rats come, to the neighborhood. The neighbors are just having, they're beside themselves because they're having to live with this, not only the smell, but the look. And then you have the people coming in and out that are questionable character, that's not necessarily what we're cleaning up, but it's oftentimes a factor of that. And then you'll have the abandoned vehicles all over the place. You'll have the RVs that move into the driveways that multiple families are living out of, and no discharge of waste anywhere except for in the yard. Those are the kind of things that we're.
Some of that work requires going through the court system.
That's right.
And I think
A lot.
on average, years ago, we might have one or two of those working through the court system at a given time. You have an estimate of how many are working through the system right now?
Well, I don't know, it was a while ago, but we had over 100 of them up there, county council.
From cases, so we work cases, our enforcement officers, we have two. We work them to a certain point. If we're not getting anywhere, if the owner or the resident's not responsive, then we refer it to county council. So since getting the direction to work through the courts for compliance, we've referred 130 plus cases to county council.
Yeah, and something else I think is important for people to know about that is, we run a complaint-driven system, right? So we're actively getting involved in these situations because a neighbor or someone in the community has actively complained about what's happening here. We,
Multiple, sometimes multiple neighbors.
we don't employ a Gestapo to drive around in the community and look for problems to start hassling people about. We literally we run a complaint-driven system.
It's truly the worst of the worst.
Yeah, and the truth is, it's always been that way. There's always been a complaint-driven system, but the work just wasn't getting done before we made it a priority. And so now, there's legitimate complaints out there that need to be dealt with, let's put it that way.
And it's literally once a week, I'll have somebody in my office that's in tears because of the way they're having to live because of what's going on in the house next door. And these are not just, these are every community in Douglas County. We have them,
And so county council is putting the liens against that property to cover the cost of that
Get a
cleanup?
judgment
To get a judgment.
from the court to go in and clean it
Is the
up.
courts giving you the judgments?
yes.
They are.
So we have couple different methods we go about that. We developed a nuisance abatement ordinance in the last couple of years that gives us kind of fast tracks that away from the circuit court. When you go through the circuit court, it's a very, very long process. You have to be very patient. It'd take a couple of years from the start to finish. The nuisance abatement kind of moves that a lot further. And there's other things. We just learned to streamline this. We've learned that who's gonna cooperate and who's not, and who's just is thumbing their nose at us, and there's no sense giving them that time. But we really are compliant. We want them, our path is to compliance, right? We want them to just get them into compliance, and we won't hassle them anymore. We don't wanna do any of this work, But unfortunately, a lot of them just never go there. And yes, the court, oftentimes when we do one of that, will give us the ability to recoup our expense in form of a lien against them. Unfortunately, you'll find that oftentimes the house is, almost in foreclosure, it's not worth anything, the bank owns more, so we're never gonna collect that. But yeah, we have made that an effort to try to, again, if you don't, I think our community would be that much worse.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we use work crew for, people that are assigned to community service. The land department will go out and use work crew to clean up these code violations.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gets as far as public works and it takes machinery.
So do we have a value of what our tax liens do to us, like an accounts payable? We have a
When you recover
figure-
that money, does it go back in this account? Or where does
I
it go?
think it goes wherever the expense, so largely it's solid waste because they have to just dispose of all of it.
The largest cleanup we did was about a year ago, north of Glendale. We put a lien on the property. Our public works likes to point out that they got a screaming deal because you can't clean up a property for the cost that the county does it.
So how much was that amount of?
Well, we recouped about
$34,000. There's a $60,000 cleanup works, not much.
It was.
But if you'd have went down there, here's this beautiful community north of Glendale that had these old retirement people in there with these little mini farms. And it was absolutely beautiful. And you had this one mini farm that had been, the people had deceased and left it to an heir, and he invited every drug buddy he had. He had 11 RVs there, and 8 of them were living in, and no septic system. And it was a very terrible, vile cleanup. And those people actually cried when we left because they've been dealing with it for 10 years. And they were just so grateful that the county came in there and finally made something happen to where they could have their lives back.
Well, thanks for all you do.
We'll move to tentatively approve the planning department budget.
I'll second that.
The motion and a second, any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you so much for your work.
Dan, is that something we can do?
What's that?
So, can you break that out easy and I'll sit next to you?
All right, we should all have your stuff too.
I don't wanna pass it. Work to you.
And I'll put this on Facebook.
Looking at this, you can't tell. I know we spent a lot.
You should.
I need to subscribe.
It's your turn. We should, because all those people. So we are on tab 20.
We've been looking for you the whole time.
Thank you for your
I know,
patience.
I've been sitting back there waiting.
Did you bring any handouts or anything to show us any visual aids?
Visual aids.
Donuts?
I brought cheesecake.
There you go.
You
Was that
did.
Yeah,
last,
thank you.
last week?
That was really
That was
good, by the
awesome.
way.
I guess we weren't invited.
Yeah, we were
That's a week too early.
Oh,
There are cinnamon rolls down in the office if you guys wanna come in.
We called cheesecake?
Not cheesecake, we have cinnamon rolls
Oh.
that are brand new from this week. This is pretty simple, straightforward. Corner preservation from FEMA. The grant was extended thanks to Jameson and his hard work, so we have that continuing. Everything else is pretty much the same.
Very simple.
Ron Quimby's still our
He is.
surveyor. He just said.
And he, I just wanna point out, he did get more votes than the assessor did.
He also had the mechanism of reelection figured out.
Yes, nobody to run against you.
We waited the last minute to make sure.
Because we had nobody running.
We actually do have one of our surveyors right now who is continuing his education and taking the exams so that he can become deputy and get some more training from Ron before he retires, so hopefully he can take over.
Again.
Before he retires again.
He'll be 85 next month.
85?
85 next month.
85?
He's a spray.
He's got lots of
I'll tell you, if you meet with Ron, you better meet about 6:30 in the morning, 'cause that's when he
Gets
wants.
up early and goes home.
Move to tentatively approve the surveyor's budget.
second.
A motion is second, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, you're approved. Thank you so much for your
You
patience.
guys can all go to lunch. You're done.
Or cinnamon rolls.
Yeah, you can come have a cinnamon roll.
Upstairs, downstairs, where?
Downstairs, first floor.
You can find it, you can have it.
For lunch, this is the end of
Yeah, there's raspberry, blueberry,
Touchdown.
and regular. And they're all homemade from sourdough.
We have one more act of business I think we need to do before we can
To approve the
close the
tax.
meeting, so I move to approve the 2026-27 fiscal year budget as presented and the property taxes it contains at the rate of 1.1124 per $1,000 of assessed property value.
I'll second that. Oh, go ahead. Jeff second.
No,
I would just mention, if I may, that's, I believe, the fourth lowest tax rate in the state of Oregon. And we continue to provide amazing services here at the county despite the challenges around the revenue. So Dan, you and your team have put together an incredible budget once again.
These guys
For us as a
deserve a
budget
lot of
committee to
credit.
look at, and to the budget committee members that track this stuff all year and then come in ready to do this work, we certainly appreciate it.
Appreciate your work.
Yes, I
We've
would
got
like,
the best group of county commissioners, again, we've had for, I would challenge any county in Oregon to better what we have.
Especially if you grade us on a curve.
I would like to comment that to keep our county tax revenue the same as it has been and the situation that we're in shows a lot for what the commissioners have done to keep this budget balanced and to replenish money. And hasn't our deficit, our reserves actually stayed the same instead of decreasing? Every year they say we're tapping into it's decreasing, and then we find funds.
Tom knows this
general
number
funds.
very well, let him say it.
General funds.
Since
Tom's
you've
got it
been here.
figured out?
Well, what he's saying is, I'm gonna tell you that in the 8 years, the first 8 years I was here, that we've, it's gone, up, what was it?
5.7.
Yeah, $5.6 million or a little over 700,000 a year, the general fund.
Yes.
Reserve, general fund reserve has increased that a much per year.
So every year we think we're pulling from the general fund because we don't have it allotted, and then the commissioners and our grants come up with ways to come up with funds to replenish it.
At the beginning of this little exercise we just went through, one of the candidates would talk about how your ending fund budgeted amount is $20 or $30 million less than your starting fund amount of the next budget, like that was a bad thing. And until we had a chance to explain, that's because we didn't spend everything that was budgeted. We work every day with all the departments. Don't just spend it because it's in your budget. If you need to do it, but if you don't need to do it, don't. So that's money we've saved. It's also additional revenue that between the commissioners and the staff, we went out and found. So grants and extending SRS payments or additional timber receipt revenue, all those things that we're all doing collectively, make that gap. So if there's a $30 million gap between the ending fund budgeted and the beginning fund, of the next budget, that means that's $30 million extra that has somehow been saved and or new revenue brought in or projects that haven't been completed. It is a tremendous success that we have that each year. A lot of governments are spend it or lose it.
Yes.
So you won't see that difference because it just doesn't exist. They spend every dollar they have in their budget. So the ending fund budgeted and the beginning fund are the same. But we don't do that here, and it's, our staff and commissioners working every day.
It took a long time to get the
Change that
department
culture.
heads that were here when we got here to understand that a dollar that they don't spend in their budget this year is a dollar that we will have available next year. They were taught that differently. It took a long time to get them to understand, listen.
Yeah, took till time.
Is there a way we could have, let's see, of course, the general fund and what we have to spend money on general fund items and how short we are every year from property taxes and our general fund budget, that without grants and everything, that we would have to pull from the reserves?
You'd be done in a year.
Well,
Yeah,
but
how?
how?
If you look at my budget message, we get 44 million in grants and other intergovernmental money. I mean, it's just,
That would consume your reserves in 1 year.
that doesn't include timber money. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just huge. We'd be out of business right away.
That was a misconception, I think a gentleman last year or the year before had that was sitting here saying we're running out of money and was mad at us that we were approving things and say we're running out of money and we're gonna do.
And it's because we budget to spend it, doesn't mean we're gonna spend it. And that, if you are from traditional government thinking, that's hard to get your mind around, that culture of, that doesn't happen at school districts, it doesn't happen at cities, it doesn't happen at the state. It happens here specifically because the commissioners, working with the department heads, we're administrators too, right? We're here doing policy and budget committee with you all, but then, we switch hats and we actually become the administrator of the county, and we work literally with the department heads to make sure that they have the resources they need to do the work for the citizens, but don't spend any money they don't need to spend, even if it's budgeted. That's just different.
Let me rephrase my question then. What's the advantage, or how are we blessed with grants that make up the difference, that lessen the amount of money coming from reserves to fund county
I mean,
government?
of our 207 million, 44 million of it comes from grants and other government. I mean, it's a huge portion. It's, almost 30% of our revenues.
Mark Walls, the Parks Director right now, has been for 6 or 7 years now. He's approaching just himself $10 million in grant awards that he's received since he's been here.
And if you look at the Public Works talking about their projects and their ability to get these 100% funded grants now, we couldn't do some of these. Any of those projects they were talking, the new ones coming up, we wouldn't be able to do because we don't have the match to do it.
And we wouldn't have a amazing park system now without the grant work.
Sure.
There's just a lot of things that we've accomplished.
And a lot of other counties don't have people, commissioners or police out.
Part of it is the consistency and the trust we have in each other, that, we can, Commissioner Boyce goes out and, you know, works in the Parks Department and figures this out and gets it done, right? And, you know, we talked about the grant on the radio stuff, you know. We literally delegated authority to Commissioner Crest, go get this done. We wanna take advantage of this opportunity, knowing it's risky, but knowing we have somebody that we can trust to do it. And it's that working relationship over time of your three commissioners that allow that to happen. Without that, each and every decision has to, you know, you argue and fight and you decide we see it in other counties. I mean, look what's happening in Josephine County, you know, that constantly happens. In Lane County, they have a commissioner, you know, and the administrator in a lawsuit against each other.
And I'm not 100% sure that they understand what you meant by delegated authority. I mean, I think they do in a general sense, but what these guys actually did for me was, I come to them and told them we have such a compressed time frame, and there's so many contracts we had to do, there's no way we can bring it in front of the board and talk and meet it every time. And I need to be able to sign off on these big contracts in order to get this done in a timely manner, and they said, do it. And they gave me that authority.
So that takes years of working together and that trust and relationship, because I'm telling you, that's not gonna happen in very many times.
What was the number again in the Parks Department? Over how many years?
7.
7 years, $10 million
And we've done over 15 million in 10 years worth of improvements to our park system. Not using the general fund to do it.
Yeah, that didn't include the grants that Rocky applied for and got when he was here, and Gary Groth was the parks director when Tim and I arrived. He started some of that work when he was here. But $15 million in investment in the park system in the last 10 or 12 years.
And what were the figures from the Pass Creek sale?
750,000.
Okay, and that was a drain on our reserves.
Well, that particular model of campground didn't match. I know we call it park, but it really was a campground, an RV, you know, campground type of facility, but it's not a destination campground. Our model is really destination campgrounds that generate revenue, so.
It's one of those things too where we talked about.
Needs changed.
We talk about, you know, the county doesn't do anything for homeless. I will tell you that when Pass Creek Park was owned by the county and it was a vacation RV park, it was very, very, very underutilized, very underutilized. But if you drive by there today, it is full.
Yep.
And every single person that's staying there was in need of housing. They're people that are on long-term nursing assignments and, you know, things like that. They have long-term living opportunity that exists there today because it's in private ownership that didn't exist when we owned it. So
And all those residents who are there now are, you know, shopping at the little store there and can help, you know, redo that community. It's gonna be good up there. It was a good decision. But that particular campground did not meet our model of destination campgrounds. People don't camp. Not as many people camp to just camp now as they used to. Used to be on the weekend, you'd take your kids camping and you would go to a Pass Creek Park type of campground. Now, they wanna go somewhere. They wanna go do horses at Knight Park. They wanna go to Chief Mayalita and either fish or recreate in boating, and they wanna go to the coast. They wanna go to Whistler's Bend and do the frisbee golf and the river. There's destinations for them to go that are very attractive, and we have develop those and continue to develop those in a way that they bring in, you know, what is a half a dozen destination campgrounds, brings in the revenue to fund 58 60 park facilities.
you know, Tom, the other thing about that is you can ask as many people as you want on this planet, where would you like to go to camp? And not one of them is going to say between a railroad track and a freeway.
Next to a swamp.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second for our tax. We still have that motion and second, we haven't voted for that yet, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We adjourn.